I really do love a good baguette. So this is called a crumb structure, and that's one way to judge a baguette's worth. There are many ways. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a baguette. Ahoy hoy, welcome back to Asset Cooking. So you're going to get 298 grams of flour. I use bread flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 1 teaspoon of yeast separated, put on different sides of your bowl. Now you see me here, I'm mixing the salt into the flour completely before I add in the yeast, before I mix in the yeast, because the yeast will affect, the salt will affect the yeast and your bread will not rise as well. Once it's done, you're going to add 170 grams of cold water, and then your poolish, which is you made the night before. It's 148 grams of flour, 170 grams of cold water, and then you just let it sit overnight. It's done, and that's what I'm currently adding to it. When you make it at first, it's a lot more liquidy, and then more hard, and then overnight it'll start to become more liquidy and it'll start to rise, and you want to catch it before it falls down again. When it's at its peak physically, that also translates to being at its peak of flavor. So I add that to the dough. You see me folding it here. I'm also folding the water in and just turning the bowl around slowly while moving my hand against the bowl helps. And I'm also kneading it this way using the walls to help me. It just makes it a lot easier. You can do it on your countertop, but I find that this is a lot less messy. And the cool thing about poolish, the poolish is what actually is going to flavor this bread. Bread gets its flavor not from its ingredients because it's so simple, which is salt, water, and flour, but from the time it takes to make the bread. Like, you're rewarded for your time, which is cool. Get that dough. it's the only dough I'm getting these days. But anyway, you want to let it ferment in a colder place than a hotter place, because the longer it takes to rise, the colder it is, and the more flavor you're gonna get. But you don't want it too cold. You're not gonna put it in a fridge or something, because then it's gonna be so cold it's not gonna rise at all. So I'm kneading the bread here more and more. I can tell that it's too dry. It needs a little bit more water. And you don't want to do too much water because this is a low hydration recipe. Ciabattas are high hydration, this is low. So I just wet my hands, put it into the thing, and let it do its thing. Here you can hear me slapping the bread. This slapping technique I actually learned in France with a friend. We went to a baguette workshop, and it's this cool folding folding technique, where you just slap the dough down, and then you fold it on top of itself, pick another side, and then keep doing that. It's really loud, but it's very effective and really quick in comparison to the other kneading ways to do it. And you don't need more flour for it too, which is nice. That helps keep the low hydration. When you lose the hydration in your dough and you're adding more flour, it becomes less flavorful. Already when there's so little flour in there, little water in the first place. So I've let the dough rise for an hour, and you can see it's become a lot more soft. So what I'm doing right now is a folding technique. The technique is just literally folding it into the center. I'm taking each point and folding it into the center and just softly grabbing it at the bowl. And I've also oiled down this bowl with a neutral oil that won't add flavor, vegetable oil. So I let that do its thing, and then I'm also going to fold it over completely, because you're only doing one fold. If you were doing a lot of folds, you wouldn't flip the dough over completely until the last fold. And then I let it rise again, and I did a little marker here. The dark red is where it was, the pink is where it should have risen to, and it's actually punched down a little bit here. It's a little softer than it actually was. Just getting it out of the bowl, it kind of knocks the cast out. Like that sound effect. I laughed I laughed too long when I was editing this. Anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm stretching out the dough, and I should have added more flour. I took too much confidence in the fact that it was a marble countertop. I thought it'd be smooth enough. I've seen some impressive YouTubers do that, but I'm not there yet. And then you're gonna make roughly four rough-sized logs, I would say. They can be pretty rough, but not that rough. like that. I edited it in Photoshop too. So I separated this into not 4, actually 3 logs. Let it do its thing. I'm gonna let it rise for like 40 minutes, really, as long as it takes. You just want it to be double in size. It can be 20 to 40 minutes, but you want to catch it before it starts deflating again, because that's when you've lost its flavor. I'm just shaping again into the logs. Here I should have actually left them a little bit shorter, because when you're folding them into the baguette shape later, it really extends the shape. So having it this long already, I extended it too long for my baguette pan, and just about fit. So you can see this guy's risen quite a bit in the 20-30 minutes. I'm gonna put it on the screen for sure how long it's been. And then you want to like punch down the gas pretty much, and this is also shaping the baguette. And the white indicates like how much of the dough is going to fold over itself, and the red is the dough that's not affected. And then for the second fold, you're throwing it around, the other side, and you're folding it over, so there's just that tiny slither that you're not hitting. I hope that made sense. And then you're just going to fold it in half completely, and then you're going to flip the seam over again. Every time you're folding, you're also like flipping the seam over. I hope that makes sense. Flip it over again. So this in total will have been my 4th like pinch down. And I do like a slightly different hand technique at each folding folding stage. The first one was more my palm, and then now just my fingertips because it's thinner. And then you want to roll out the sides of it just to make that pointy baguette shape. You usually would also roll it out from the center all the way to the out, but I was already at that baguette length, so couldn't go any further. And then I put down my parchment paper, and I put it pretty long because I know the baguettes are going to proof. Proof is just a baguette term for, letting them sit and rise. But once they have proofed to what I want, after 40 minutes of letting them be, I'm gonna cut off the parchment paper because I know it could create a fire hazard. we had very, very finicky, very finicky fire alarms at my school, and I may have set them off multiple times, including the week we had to leave because of COVID. It felt like a good goodbye that way. So you can see how much they've risen in just the 40 minutes. So here I'm gonna cut off the parchment. I'm gonna cut down the parchment paper so there's no fire hazard, and also it's not getting in the way of your bread coloring, right? Like if it's in the way, kind of like the way you would use foil when you're done cooking the chicken, but it needs a little bit more time, but you don't want any more color on the chicken. You use the foil to like block the coloring pretty much. I spent a lot of time cooking. I think I can just like weave in a lot of cooking tips during these videos, but then they would be very long. When I first started editing these videos, there was 30 minutes of footage. There was 35 minutes for this video, and then I had trimmed it down to 13 minutes and 5 seconds. I'm Irish though, so I still don't like the 13. So I'm gonna cut the knife here. Use the knife here to score the baguette. With baguettes, you're making 3 lines, and they're not going to be straight down the middle. It's not parallel. It's just like, a little tilted pretty much. The only thing is I don't like this knife. It's really awkward. It doesn't get that sharp edge it should. I even got a baguette scorer online, but it was such bad quality, and it like tears against the dough. It drags it along, but it doesn't allow that deep cut. And one way to judge a good baguette is if the ears of the baguette, that's what the cut is called, it should be wide enough that you can hold it by its edge. And sadly, you will see with these baguettes, it just didn't get that nice effect. So here I have a cast iron that's been in the oven, and then I just add a cup of ice to it to create steam in the oven. People say like you can do boiling water, but with baguettes you really don't want to let the heat out of the oven at all, like as minimum as you can. So I find it much faster to throw a cup of ice there then to pour a whole jug waiting for it to go, and then also you're dealing with boiling water. I have like 4 burns on my arm from making baguettes. I don't need any more. No thank you. So these are how the baguettes came out. I just baked them at 350 for like 35 minutes. And I tried to cut into it when it was still piping hot. I'm kind of struggling here. That's why I had to use a towel. But I was just too excited, I couldn't wait. It was really good. Let's try it. Let's try it. I'd say it's pretty good. It's got a nice crust. It's soft. And it's not like super condensed. Isn't it so pretty? Oh, look at her. This channel is just gonna be about me eating bread. I've been cooking long before this pandemic. I've been baking bread since 2017. This is my first baguette. It was not good. This is my next round. Also not good. This one was good. That was like a surprising win. That was really nice. And it was really good ears. I could pick it up by its ears. These ones were burnt. These ones were really nice. I wish they opened up more, but like, oh my gosh. And I used a t-shirt with flour on it to let it rise. And this other baguette, I learned the longer you wait during the day, letting it sit, the softer the bread becomes. That one, I think I gave it like 6 hours, 6 or 8 hours instead of the 2 hours. It was really good. I might make it again, actually. And this is the first time I used my baguette pan at my college dorm. Yeah. Just don't do this with bread. And you'll be fine.